know, my name is Dov Baron. I am the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. I am an Entrepreneur Magazine contributor and voted by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Very grateful for that. You can find me, of course, on Twitter at @TheDovBaron, on LinkedIn, just search out Dov Baron, there's only one. Facebook, Dov Baron Leadership, and YouTube, we have a YouTube channel, Dov Baron Full Monty Leadership, and where else? We're everywhere. Anyway, Medium, Entrepreneur Magazine, new blogs, new videos every Tuesday and Thursday, lots of great material for you to keep you at the top of your game, providing you with the soft leadership skills to create a stronger, better bottom line filled with fulfillment. All right, so let's get into it. I was thinking about this last night and again this morning. What I was thinking about was this experience I had when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I had a grandfather, as some of you did too. I had a granddad, and my grandfather was kind of infamous. He was a bit of an ass, and that would be putting it very nicely. And no, people say, oh, you shouldn't talk like that about your grandparents, or or certainly about the dead, because let's face it, we're going to canonize the dead. If they're dead, they instantly become saints. Well, not true. Sorry, I don't believe that crap. He was a nasty old grommet. He was pretty mean to most people. Although he was actually not too bad with me. I think I had a better relationship with him than a lot of people did. However, he was not a pleasant folk. And he was very much that kind of leader, because he was the leader of the family, he was the patriarch. He was very much the kind of leader that is the dictatorial leader. He was the man's man. He was, I'm the man. These are my rules, my house, my rules. There was no democracy. There was nothing even resembling democracy. It was simply, he was the boss and you're going to do as he decides. And I remember being out one day and playing with my mate Billy, who lived across the street. I must have been 10 or 11 because I lived with my grandparents for almost a year at that time. I'm 10 or 11 years old and I'm out playing with Billy. And we're having a good old time, and we come in, and my grandfather's got one on, meaning he's in a pissy mood for whatever reason, not unusual. And he says, where have you been? I said, I was out playing with Billy. That's it. That's what? That's it. You're not allowed to play with Billy anymore. What did Billy do? He doesn't explain, of course, because he's my grandfather. He's the dictator. There is no conversation, it's just a fact. I'm not allowed to play with Billy anymore. But as that goes on and my grandfather leaves the room, my uncle walks in. My uncle's 9 years older than me, so he's in his late teens by that point. And I look at him and he says, oh, he's telling me that my grandfather has just had a big fight, big argument with Billy's dad. He's had a big argument with Billy's dad, and as a result, I'm not allowed to be friends with Billy anymore, because apparently my grandfather's enemies and anybody related to them are instantaneously my enemies, or anybody who's related to my grandfather suddenly is not allowed to be friends with anybody that he has decided is not worthy of his friendship. I was thinking about that story, and I was thinking about that experience, and how even at 10 years old it seemed like fucking crazy stuff to me. But even at that age, I thought it was nuts. And then I was thinking about something else that happened to me. Probably just over 20 years ago, when a bit longer actually, I just moved to Vancouver. I'd become really good friends with my mate Mike. Mike Richards, good guy. Him and I were very, very, very tight friends for many, many years. Mike, to describe Mike, he looked like the toughest guy in the world. Shaved head, with about 4 hairs that he pulled into a ponytail and the hairs that was left and 240 pounds of lean, hard muscle mass at 5'8". So it built like a brick shithouse and looked really tough, and you know, was a pretty scary looking guy, but a great guy, a really wonderful person. And one day, him and I are walking down Granville Street in Vancouver, one of the main streets of Vancouver, and as we're walking down this street, I see this guy walking towards us who looks sort of vaguely familiar to me, and as he gets closer I realize, oh yeah, I do know him, and I say, hi, how you doing? And he says hi back, but he's really not very conversational. He doesn't really want to chat. He really wants to keep moving. Okay, maybe he's in a hurry, whatever it is, right? I don't make any big deal out of it. And then about, I don't know, maybe a week or 2 weeks later, I'm in the gym on my own, and I see this guy, the guy who crossed the street. And that's where I know this guy from. I know him from the gym. And he says to me, he says, what were you doing out there with Richards? And I go, what do you mean? He goes, when I saw you on Granville Street, what are you doing hanging out with him? He's a fucking asshole. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he says, the other day, last week, when I saw you with Mike Richards, why are you hanging out with that guy? He's an asshole. So I looked at him and I said, I don't know who you mean. He says, you do know who I mean. You know exactly who I mean. You were with him when I saw you. I said, I was with Mike Richards, yeah. And he goes, well, that's what I'm saying. What were you doing hanging out with that asshole? I said, I don't know who you mean. Of course, the guy's getting pretty frustrated now because I'm running him in a circle. You see, I admit that I know he's talking about Mike, but I don't know who he's talking about because he keeps describing him as an asshole. So he says, what's your problem? And I said, I don't know the guy you're talking about. And he said, what do you mean? I said, the Mike Richards I know is fun, is caring, is generous, and is quite a spiritual individual. Oh yeah, this makes this guy just crack up. He thinks that's hysterically funny, thinks I'm actually joking. I said, I'm not joking. That's the Mike that I know. It's very similar to that story about my granddad, because everybody has a perception of everybody else, and everybody wants to push their perception of that person on you and tell you who they are. Many years ago, when I very first moved to Vancouver, this is quite the story one, this one, isn't it? I was, every Wednesday night, I used to give a talk at the Comox Hotel, at the corner of Comox and Denman. I had rented a hotel room in there, a conference room, and every Wednesday night we would do a presentation. And it was kind of an open thing, anybody could come, and I would speak about something for 45 minutes or an hour, and then we'd open it up to questions, and it was a pretty great thing actually. I really enjoyed it, and it brought a lot of value to a lot of people. And it kind of caught on. I mean, I think we started off by just telling a few people about it, and maybe had 10 people show up. You know, it was like, I don't know what it was, like $20 to come or whatever it was. And then eventually, you know, we ended up with 50 or 60 people in this tiny little room, pretty crowded, every Wednesday night. So on this particular Wednesday, I got there, and it's been a pretty intense day. I was pretty sort of stressed out. And I was like, okay, so everybody set up the room. They went to set up the room. I went off into a different area of the hotel and tried to find a bit of quiet space. And I went and did some meditation, tried to sort of come down a little bit and center myself. All that's going on. And then I went, sod it, no, you know what? So I went upstairs. I went up to the bar. I thought I'd go have a rum and coke. I'll just chill out. So I go upstairs, and I'm having a rum and coke, sitting there at the bar, and it's empty. I mean, this is like 6 o'clock at night. There's nobody in there. It's not a bar that people go to after work. And so, 6 o'clock at night, I'm sitting there, I'm on my own. It's me, bartender's down the other end of the bar. This guy walks in, and he sits right next to me. And he starts chit-chatting a little bit, and you know, fine. I'm going to be social. I chat with him a little bit. How you doing? What are you up to? Blah, blah, blah. And pretty quickly we create some level of rapport between us. And I ask him what's going on. And he begins to tell me about what's going on in his life. You know, he's having some challenges with this or that. You know, he's having some struggles. So I begin, I listen for quite a while, and then I ask him if he wants some input, and he says, sure. And I give him a bit of guidance. I tell him, well, have you looked at this? Have you considered that? Have you thought about whatever this, and I begin to have that kind of conversation with him. At the end of that conversation, he says to me, you're a pretty smart dude. I said, thank you. He goes, yeah, you really helped me. That really made a lot of sense to me. That was really good. Thank you. And he's very genuine in his gratitude. And I said, you're very welcome. If you feel like what I offered there is valuable to you, I actually do a talk here every Wednesday night in the hotel. Why don't you come to, it's just downstairs, why don't you come down? You come in as my guest, come on down and listen to the presentation, and then I answer questions for about another hour afterwards. And this guy then stops and he looks at me and he goes, oh my God, you're that Dove Baron, aren't you? I said, yeah, I am. And he says, oh no, I am not coming down there. And I said, what do you mean? And he says, I know the kind of stuff that you guys talk about. Forget it. I mean, that is not for me. And he starts going off about all the reasons that this is complete bullshit and what I talk about is nonsense and he wants nothing to do with it. And he's made up his mind that I am a complete wackadoodle. Now, let me just remind you that about 3 minutes before he was telling me how insightful and how beneficial what I had shared with him was. And I'd gone from that to wackadoodle in 3 minutes. And I got to tell you, I was kind of stunned, but I was also kind of amused. So I said to him, tell me, I mean, I'm really fascinated to know, how did I go from the person who was very insightful and actually quite helpful to you to becoming this guy that you consider a complete wackadoodles? And he says, I know Leia. It's not the person's name, but I'll just use that name. He goes, I know Leia. And I go, okay. And he goes, well, she comes to your talks every Wednesday. Now, the person he was talking about did indeed show up for my talks every Wednesday, always front and center, always there, and definitely listened to every word I said. And in fact, was a bit of a parrot, meaning that the person would go away and repeat what I said, but always with a little twist and a little tweak. And so he was now judging me through the lenses, not even the lenses, but the interpretive lenses of another person. So often we don't see people. The question I asked at the front end of this video was, are you old enough, are you mature enough to have friends of your own? Because if you are, you will have to decide who those people are based on your genuine assessment, not on somebody else's assessment. I had a really good mate I was friends with for years who suddenly stopped being friends with me. This is about 25 years ago. Why? His wife didn't like me. We were really great friends when he was single, and then he got married, and we stopped being friends. And I actually asked him why, and he said, my missus don't like you. Didn't matter why, but I know, of course, he's going to choose her over me. He's got to live with her. Now, why didn't she like me? I do know why she didn't like me. The reason she didn't like me is because she saw me as a threat. She saw me as a threat to their relationship. She saw me as somebody who would hold him accountable. She saw me as somebody who would keep him on track with being authentic. And she wanted him to be who she wanted him to be. And that was very upsetting for her, that I was somebody else. And moreover, that I was somebody else who could have influence on him because she wanted to be the one who would have influence on him. You know, too often when it comes to our relationships, romantic, business, friendship, whatever kind of relationships they might be, all too often we behave like a frickin' puppet, like somebody's got their hand up our ass and are wiggling us around like we're a puppet, telling us what it is that we should think, telling us what it is that we should feel, rather than actually just trusting and knowing for ourselves. Listen, I've got friends that my wife is not particularly keen on. She's got friends that I'm not particularly keen on. That's okay. I don't have to like everybody she likes. She doesn't have to like everybody I like. But she has to like them for her reasons, and they have to be damn good reasons. And I have to like the people I like for the reasons I like. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. We all have to make our own assessments. And it takes a great deal of maturity. And you've heard me speak a lot about this. There is a massive difference between emotional intelligence, which I know most of you are familiar with because it's become a familiar subject, but there's a great difference between emotional intelligence and emotional maturity. And a lot of people have got a lot of emotional intelligence, at least at an intellectual level. They've learned what it is to be emotionally intelligent. But a lot of them lack a great deal of emotional maturity in that they are being manipulated by everybody around them, particularly the people they love. That they don't have the backbone, they don't have the testicles, they don't have the ovaries to know what they want and to be true for that. So here's the thing I want you to grasp around this. It's really important. When somebody else is telling you how to see another person, you've got to decide for yourself. And particularly if that person is shitting on the person involved, meaning they're telling you, oh, this person's ratty, or they don't like them for whatever the reason is. Because here's the message I want you to get. You know, we're all familiar with how we shouldn't judge. And maybe you do a pretty good job of it, of not judging. First of all, let me just make something totally clear to you. You judge. So do I. It's a human thing that we do as a matter of survival. It's part of an assessment process that we do as survival. It's actually precognitive. We don't even have to think about it. We're already judging. We're only consciously aware of certain amounts of the judgment, and that's okay. And when you become consciously aware, you can actually look at that judgment that you have, and you can decide whether it is in fact appropriate or not. And the way you decide that is, are you judging something that has no impact on you? So if you're looking at somebody and you're judging their body, the person who passes you in the street, what impact does that have on you? What impact does that actually have on your life? You're judging them as fat, or you're judging them as too thin, or you're judging them as ugly, or you're judging them as whatever it is you're judging them. But does it really have anything to do with you? Is it any of your goddamn business? No, it's not. That's a judgment you don't need. But here's the thing, when you start judging people around these friendships, there's something you might want to consider, and it's this. Are you ready? You might want to write this down. You might want to tattoo this one in your brain. People blame and shame in order to redirect their pain. Did you get it? People blame and shame others in order to redirect the pain that they feel themselves. You see, if I can blame and I can shame somebody else, then I don't really have to look at the pain that I'm in. I can transfer that pain over to somebody else. So when you're hearing somebody else blaming and shaming somebody else, when you hear somebody doing that, and it's around your friend, it's worth listening to. It's worth paying attention, that maybe you're in some kind of illusion, of course. But it's also worth you paying attention to what the truth is for you. We have to know our own truth, and you can't do that until you get clear with yourself about who you are, about what matters to you, about what your truth is, because your truth is not my truth.
Let's go.
what I believe is not what you believe. And there's no reason it should be. You're your own person. I can offer you things that you might seem as valuable, and if they seem valuable to you and you can use them, then of course, that's great. But you're not entitled, you're not obligated to take it on. And so if the people, listen, I know people, you know people, I know people that everybody loves. I mean, they go, oh, what a wonderful person, they're so marvelous. And honestly, I just don't. I just get a whole other vibe from them. And I go, yeah, okay, well, I'm really glad that that's a good connection for you. I'm glad that that's a great fit for you. But it's not for me. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that they should stop being friends with that person. It doesn't mean that they should stop admiring that person. Of course not. It just means that I have to know what works for me. And I have people, like my friend Mike, who I have a relationship with, who I love, who I respect, who I see as kind and generous and spiritual, and other people see him as an asshole. Now, the truth is he an asshole? Of course he is, but not to me. That's not our relationship. So, what I'm asking you to do is to be mature, to grow up, to have some emotional maturity, and decide for yourself. Nobody has their hand up your ass. You're not a puppet. You're an adult. And by the way, maturity has nothing to do with chronology. Meaning, just because you reached a certain age does not make you mature. Some of the biggest kids I know, some of the most wounded children I know, are walking around in 50, 60, 70-year-old bodies. Your chronology, your age, does not have anything to do with your maturity. Your maturity is about your emotional maturity, your ability to own your truth, the ability to question your own truth, the ability to grow, the ability to look deeper, and ultimately to follow your own purpose, whatever that is. As you can see, probably, might be able to see it, it is pissing down on me as I walk in this walk right now, but that's okay. I'm still enjoying talking with you. Anyway, so let me hear from you. Let's hear what you have to say. I'll see if there's a little sheltered spot down here where I can read some. But meanwhile, pop up some comments, some feedback. Let me know if this has been valuable to you. Give me the thumbs up, give me the hearts, give me those kinds of things. If this has been useful to you, significant, valuable, give me the hearts, give me the thumbs up, and please hit that share button. And by the way, when the show is over and this is up as an encore, you can still leave the hearts and the thumbs up and all those kinds of things, and you can still hit the share button, because it's important for us to share the wealth and let other people get value, because, I don't know, maybe some decent stuff in this for others. Maybe not. Maybe it's a lot of old crap, and I just made it up 10 minutes ago. Entirely possible. Guess you'll have to decide for yourself. All right, let's see what you have to say. Lisa says, shared, thank you. Thank you, Lisa, appreciate that. Christy says, I was 5 years old for a long time. Love the live post of. Excellent, thank you, Christy, that's good to know. Let's see what everybody else has to say. Anybody else got anything of value that they want to add? My God, this is so beautiful. I'm going to give you a view in a minute. Just share that with you. But while you give me your comments, I want to know if this was valuable to you, if you got something out of this, if it was significant to you, if you're going to actually do anything with it. That would be novel, wouldn't it? Or is it just a concept? Because for most people, this stuff is just a concept. Because the difference between knowing I should change and actually changing, those are vastly different things that most people will never fulfill. But however, while all that's going on, Lise says, it was great, fabulous. Let's give you guys a flip around and see what I'm seeing. So there's the city in the background, pretty nice. And the sun is coming towards a set behind me over there. So it's a pretty beautiful scene today, even though it is raining right now. It is quite lovely. Really appreciate you being on with me, appreciate you joining me for today's show, the weekend show. Again, please hit share and share it with others. It's important that we share the wealth. I think it's important, at least. It's my opinion, my idea. Maybe you think it's good to hoard it. Whatever lights your candle. So, until next time, this is Dov Baron, fullmontyleadership.com. Remember to go check me out on Twitter at @TheDovBaron. Follow my podcast on iTunes. Go over there, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. It's Dov Baron, Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Execs. You can also find me on YouTube, Dov Baron, Full Monty Leadership, and of course my blog and new articles and new posts every Tuesday and Thursday. And of course I mentor leaders like you. So if you want to find out about being mentored by me, you can simply go to Full Monty Leadership and look at mentoring, and you'll find it there. Or you can just write to me here on Facebook, and I'll get to you and we'll find a way to connect. All right, till next time, this is Dov Baron, fullmontyleadership.com. Stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about who's got their hand up your skirt telling you how to think and how to feel. Be emotionally mature. Till next time, this is Dov Baron, and I am out.